Hi, my name's Dan, and this video is one of the series of videos that I'm doing about how to get communication between different scripts in Unreal. It's all done using the visual scripting system, sometimes called Blueprint, erroneously. And in this one, I'm going to show you how to communicate with most of what I call the essential blueprints, which are built-in things that are needed as part of an Unreal project. I did a video in an earlier series about this, about what those blueprints are, and we'll get a quick reminder of that as we go through in this. What I've got here is it looks like a earlier version of Unreal, and that's because this project was actually created in 4.26, I believe, but I have imported this into 5.2 just to make sure that everything I say is up to date. In fact, everything I'm going to say is exactly the same as I did when I did the 4.26 version of this video, so I'm basically repeating myself. But that's okay, I don't mind doing that. I'm going to do it slightly differently, but not hugely. And what I have is a set of pads here, and each one of these is slightly different, but all they are is a pad that I can stand on with the character, and that will trigger some response. And most of these are now actually already wired up. So that these pads are things I can walk on, and they're going to do the triggering, and I'll show you, actually kind of walk through one of them, and then I'll show you the others, which are already wired up, just to show you how they're done. And what we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about the actual blueprints that we're going to communicate with. So the essential blueprints come in several flavors. So the first one is the level blueprint, and I'm not going to show you how to communicate with the level blueprint in this video because that is freaky and weird. At least the only way I know to do it is freaky and weird. And so that'll be in the next video after this one. So most of the rest of them come under maps and modes and settings. So Epic have seen fit to move settings over here to the top left, top right, and I'm going to click that and go for project settings, and I'm going to click on maps and modes, and I'm just going to zoom in so we can see this a bit clearer if we need to. So there are within here there are several things that are needed by the game. I'm going to zoom down and look at this one, game instance, which is my favorite of these. And what I've done is I've created my own version of several of these to plug in. So I've put in a Dan game instance class, which is now plugged into that. So we're going to look at communicating with the game instance. I've also got, so the rest of them are attached to the game mode. So I've got the third person game mode, which is the one that comes with the project when you create it, but I've made an alteration to that. The default pawn class that's being used as the third-person character, which I've made an alteration to. The HUD class, so that's for heads-up display. I'm not actually going to do any HUD stuff in this. I've got my own that I've plugged in. I've plugged in my own player controller, game state, and player state. I've not done the spectator class. I have not managed to get spectator communication working, and I think that's because you have to actually be in a special spectator game mode to be able to have access to that, and I didn't try particularly hard this time around. So I've got these plugged in. Some of them are the ones, modified versions, the third-person game mode and the third-person character. Some of them are my own that I have plugged in, and most of these are fairly straightforward to access, but there's a few wrinkles to it, which I'll show you as we go through. Right, I'm going to back out and just quickly show you the classes are down here in my content. And I can't zoom in again. So I've got a game instance, the Dan game state, the Dan HUD, the Dan player controller, and the Dan player state. And I'll just quickly open up the game instance to show you what's going on in here, which I've got a custom event that I've called incoming message, and all that does is prints a string that says hello from game instance. Okay, so each of these essential blueprint versions that I've created has got its own incoming message, custom event, and it gives you a message from that particular one. These are really easy, obviously easy to create and to do, but I'm not going to waste your time and mine by creating them all on the fly for this video. And as I say, most of them are plugged in, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one of them, which is the game instance. So I'm going to find which is the game instance switch, which is this one, and open it up. And what we want to do is on actor begin overlap on that event, because that's when the player walks on the pad. And again, I'm going to zoom in so we can see a bit, hopefully clearer, what's going on here. So the great question is, how do I invoke that incoming message event in, and in this one we're going to do the game instance. And so I need to get hold of the game instance. So the first thing you need to know is you don't drag out from there and try and do it. So I'm going to get game instance. It doesn't appear. And the reason for that is because we've gone off an execution pin. Don't drag off the other actor because that's the player character or whatever. And if you do that, get game instance, it doesn't happen. What you need to do is right-click in a blank bit of the event graph and then type in get game instance. Okay. And that gives us the game instance. Now there's a wrinkle here because what we've done is we've taken the standard game instance and we've added our own functionality to it. And at this point, when we get the game instance, it's getting the game instance that we're using, but it thinks it's a member of the superclass, which is just the blank game instance that we've inherited from. And what we need to do is we need to tell it that we're actually expecting this to be a particular kind of game instance. And the programming way of doing that is to do what's called a cast, which means we're going to stop looking at it as if it's the parent class, the game instance, and we're going to start looking at it as if it's one of my own versions, or my own particular version, which is the Dan game instance. And so we pull off there and we type in cast. And you're just going to have to learn that this word is cast, I'm afraid. Cast to Dan game instance. So if we, let's just demonstrate the difference between that. If I pull off there and we try and type in incoming message, it doesn't see it. It doesn't know that it's there. That's because that's not part of that superclass. But if we pull off there and we type in incoming message, you can see that's appeared now, and we can make that happen. Now we need to connect execution up to the cast, because cast is an active thing rather than just a data thing. Okay, so we've now plugged that in, and hopefully that means that that incoming message is going to happen. Let's zoom out and do some demonstration. Compile. Now all these different pads have actually got words on them, just to show which one they're meant to be triggering, and my game instance one is the first one there. So I'm just going to play and hit F11 to F11. Let's get this right. Let's get this bigger, and then walk over the game instance and watch the top left. There, hello from game instance. So that has triggered that. And in fact, I'm going to demonstrate that. If I walk along here, they've all got their own specific message that they're giving. Like I said, I'm not wanting to show you the wiring up of all of these because that just takes a while. But I do want to show you how these have been achieved, just quite quickly, go through them all. So I'm going to go for the, which one should we do first? We'll do the modes, game states actually, game state switch. So that's just get game state and cast to Dan game state. Yep, straightforward. And then we do the incoming message. I've called it incoming message in all of them. They are separate events because they're distinct to the particular class that they're in. I've just given them all the same name for convenience. We've got, I'm going to leave HUD and come back to it. We've done the game instance. Game mode, again, exactly the same. Get the game mode, cast to the third-person game mode. So remember, I modified the one that was here, and then incoming message. And that's player pawn, which I'll do in a second. Do the player state next, because these are the fairly straightforward ones. Get player state. Now, this has a player index. Anything to do with the player has got indexes because you might have a multiplayer situation. But when you're just testing something like this, very simple, your single player is always index 0. So again, you can get the player state, cast to the down player state, and give it an incoming message. Just going to make sure I do all of them. Player pawn. So player pawn is actually, in this case, the player character. Now, in the settings, it said pawn, and we plugged it in as a player character, and it's easier to actually get hold of it as a player character than as a player pawn. Let's just see if I can prove that. I might prove myself wrong here. Get player pawn. It looks similar, and I'm guessing that we can cast to third-person player character. So I could do it just as easily with get player pawn. I've used get player character here. So I've just proved myself wrong. It is just as easy to do it this way as it is any other way, as the other way. Player controller. Again, get player controller, cast to down player controller. Again, it's got an index here. Incoming message. And have we done mode? I think we've done mode, but if not, there we go. It's the same. There is one that is different from the others, which is HUD. So getting hold of the HUD. First time I tried to do this, it drove me crazy. I was going round in circles and trying to find out how to do it. Because you can't get hold of the HUD just by right-clicking here and doing get HUD. It doesn't appear. Even if you unclick context sensitive, all you get is get HUD class. It doesn't let you get hold of the HUD. So despite the fact that there generally seem to be claims that if you unclick context sensitive, you will get hold of every possible thing that's available. That's actually not true. And that's because, in some weird way, the HUD is part of the player controller. So what you need to do is to get the player controller first. Let's just zoom in. And then from there, get HUD. Now, because the HUD is part of the player controller at that level of class, so at the player controller class, so it's still part of the... I could cast this to the third person, to the down player character, and then get HUD, but I don't need to. So I can then do get player controller, get HUD, cast to the down HUD, and then do the incoming message. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Let's just quickly run it again, just showing the responses here. So we've got the down game instance, the down HUD, the down game states, the third person game mode, the third person player controller. In fact, no, just the down player controller, the third person player character, and then the down game state. So that's how to contact most of the essential blueprints if you want to do anything. I keep saying that game instance is my favorite of these. This is where I tend to store any kind of meta information about the game. So you might have ongoing stuff, for example, score, and it's quite a good thing to be able to contact the game instance to be able to update the score or make changes to things that happen elsewhere. So that's it from me for now.